Just before we were to get married, my fiancé requested me to start dating him. Subsequently, I discovered that he had been manipulated for months by his guru buddies. As the headline indicates, I, 28F, and my fiancé, John, 28M, have been dating for almost 5 years. I must provide you with some history so you can comprehend the situation. Despite the fact that it affected us in quite different ways, we both hailed from highly religious families. John turned into a troublemaker who ran away and caused issues, and ultimately locating a group that his parents would disapprove of. The majority of this group's members were either atheists or followers of other religions, used marijuana, participated in rallies, and belonged to the LGBTQ community. This set of people formed his current circle of friends, albeit some have since moved away. The two primary ringleaders are Avery, 33M, and Alex, 35NB. From what I hear, they gathered damaged individuals, as John once joked, and allowed them to couch surf when times went tough. I won't go into specifics about each of them. Avery works in it or something, and Alex is a nepo baby of sorts. When John was 15, he met them. Since John compared their connection to that of a father and kid, I first thought they were very interesting and couldn't wait to meet them. They are obviously extremely significant people in his life. However, I was a little disappointed after our first encounter, which took place when we were 21 years old, in college, and at home for the summer. John said they always need to break new people in, so I tried to think positively and did my best to impress them with what I was studying and what my plans are for the future, both personally and in terms of my relationship. Alex was catty and made snide remarks because I wasn't LGBTQ+ or anything, at most bi-curious, and Avery treated me like a child. However, they appeared to dislike me more the more I spoke. John appeared thrilled to see them again and raved about how much they loved me, so I kept my mouth shut and simply nodded in agreement despite the awkward encounter. To give you a better idea of who Alex and Avery are, consider that they are considered local superstars in the town where they reside. They are highly spiritual, have a home filled with mementos from all of their trips, and are married, albeit they define marriage very differently than the conventional concept. They reportedly took hallucinogens together while in a tropical state when they declared their unwavering love for one another. It's a crazy idea for someone like me, but ever since I left for college, I've learned to be more accepting. However, they also claim to adore my fiancés and to be able to perceive auras whatever they are. They presumably don't think much of mine, but I'm not sure. Which leads us to the subject I brought with me. John asked me what I thought of being in a polygamous relationship last week when we came home from work. He claimed that he loves me more than he can ever express, and that he is unsure of what to do with the remainder, believing that it would be just to offer it to someone else. However, I have no restrictions on how much I may adore him. That's what happened when I said no. But ever since, the question has been bothering me. If you knew even a little bit about John, you would know that he does a lot of research before committing to anything. Any changes in relationships or lifestyle whatsoever. This suggests to me that he has already given it some thought, and that he has also discussed it with Avery or Alex N. Although I don't want to paint them in a negative light, I am positive that they are not monogamous, and that they dislike me more than the other members of their little group. I just have this terrible feeling that they somehow drew John in, and I don't want to blame anyone. I also won't ask John to show me his communications with them until I have concrete evidence that it's not just a gut instinct. He couldn't have come up with the idea on his own. The topic of non-monogamy was never discussed during our 5 years of dating, so why does he bring it up right before our wedding? Even if I completely disagree with it, I can't simply go ahead and face them right now, can I? I simply don't know how to proceed. I'm trapped in the house. When I look at John, all I can think of is that he believes he can only love me so much and wants to love someone else. I act like everything is okay since my group of close friends informed me that I'm simply overanalyzing, and for a time I believed them. I don't know how to handle this, but I want to. John would either dismiss it as well or believe I'm cheating, or that I don't trust his buddies if I bring it up to him. I put a lot of effort into winning their favor, and I'm certain John tells them everything. This was not something he would keep to himself. I'm simply hoping someone here can help me figure out what to do next. Regards. Comments in which the operator responded degenerate to Tilliker. Ended. If you don't swing that way once you are married, it will only become worse. You cannot make any concessions on this. You don't want to fuck other people, but he does. God, it's terrifying to think of breaking up with you. Since leaving for college, I feel like I've centered my entire existence on him, so I'm afraid I'll fall apart if we split ways. I can see where you're coming from, though, and I need more time to take it all in. Why are we 94, Tildy? Avoid being brainwashed by them. People are frequently drawn into someone else's way of life and then abruptly removed. It will make you question your identity. It destroyed me, and I've been there. What would happen if you followed their lead and were later rejected? It's difficult to recover from it. Furthermore, I'm not making this statement just out of sexual desire. A person might be seriously messed up by new age jargon or auras combined with drastic shifts in sexual preferences. If you already feel like you're being pushed out of the group and he's making this request, it's a terrible indicator. Many people enjoy this function, which is almost like a give mind or the popular clique. Additionally, the notion that he loves you more than anybody else is a terrible cop-out and a popular justification used by individuals to persuade their so to try poly or open. Guilt is a common usage for it. He seems to be implying that you are avaricious for preferring to keep your connection private and exclusive. Simply said, use caution. I don't want you to suffer the same fate as I did. You risk suffering serious harm if you commit to someone whose personality and way of life are drastically changing. I would be concerned about how much you invest in him if he is indeed changing in this way. I only mention this because in the end, my ex began spending more time with a group of college buddies, and I was totally devoted to her. We got into a minor dispute one day about parking, and she ended up claiming that we had to break up since she wasn't sure what sex she was attracted to anymore, or even if she was still female. I wouldn't mind assisting them in self-discovery, but for her, it only served as a pretext to end our relationship. I think it was more about her wanting to have fun than anything else, and it was influenced by her circle of friends who came out at the same time and were either single or exploring. She must have had FOMO TBH when she watched them enjoying a good time. For her, this was her opportunity to rekindle the joy she could have lost while in a relationship. For me, it meant losing a part of who I was that I had loved for years. I sincerely hope that John is not using this as an opportunity to catch up or as a ploy to end the relationship. Though that doesn't sound like him, I'll remember this. September 17th, 2024. Update. I sincerely appreciate all of your kind responses and sincere counsel. I didn't anticipate more than 100 comments and some kind direct messages, not to sound corny. I apologize for my lack of response. It was rather emotionally taxing. When anything significant occurs, I thought I'd post an update, and I believe this is it. Let me fill in some gaps in my tale first, though, before I get ahead of myself. John and I had similar upbringings, but my family was a little more lenient and let me attend college because I did well academically. My plan was to return home after earning my degree, finding employment, getting married, and leading a conventional life. But that obviously didn't work out because I met John, who completely changed my life's course. I changed my major after a year to something I enjoyed more, and I haven't spoken to my parents in a long time. They disapproved. Of course, but with John's assistance, I refused to comply with their requests to return. They are now aware that I am getting married and have been invited, but our last conversation was around 2 months ago. Since he was 18, John has had no communication at all with his parents. They like me. At first, they were obviously a little skeptical since to them, I was a cishet white passing lady, but they warmed up to me, and I'm pleased to call them my friends. I didn't write about the buddy group in greater depth at first because I didn't believe they were that significant. The only ones that didn't completely are those who have a peculiar, almost disparaging way of calling me the wife ever since John and I formally started together. Even though it's not a crucial element, I find it annoying. Last but not least, although I haven't stated that I want to be with a woman in a committed relationship of that size, John acknowledged that opening up the relationship would result in me becoming intimate, either physically or emotionally, with other people. Nevertheless, he said it's a great opportunity for me to explore my BI side. Let's get started. 2 days ago, I sent John a message stating that we needed to speak. He works from home. I don't. So we sat down to discuss his plan in detail as soon as I came home. He felt almost remorseful, and I had the impression that he knew what it would be about, but I chose to ignore that and just verbally spewed out everything that had been on my mind. This is humiliating since I was ready for a mature conversation and jotted down much of the advice from the comments. However, by the time my easy 15-minute tirade was over, I was crying, and he had to hold me to keep me from falling apart. I basically stated that I'm hurt that he wants to have sex with other people and doesn't care that I would do the same. He also said that he thinks there's a limit to how much he can love me, and I don't understand how this all happened. Finally, he surprised me just a few months before our wedding. Yes, we made an effort to have a mature conversation, but at the end he was irritated. He apologized for making me feel inferior, but he claimed that my attitude toward an open relationship is self-centered. Essentially, he believes that he didn't have enough time to discover who he was before he committed to me. He showed no indication that he wanted more than I could provide, therefore that's crap. We had a great 5 years together, and I genuinely thought I had found my true love. I discovered that he tended to talk more to his group of friends and therefore to Avery and Alex since we were engaged. Once more, I don't want to portray them as these cartoonish bad guys. They're fascinating and all, but right now, all I want to do is rip those conceited, self-centered smiles off of their faces. When I finally insisted on seeing his phone, he seemed taken aback. We agreed that we could view each other's phones, but since our relationship is based on trust, and neither of us wanted to be the relationship's jail guard, we didn't exchange passwords or anything else. He unlocked his phone, though, and gave it to me. I looked through all of his messages, including ones that had been erased, and couldn't find anything unusual. After that, I looked at the call log, and you know what? Calls to and from Alex or Avery lasted for hours. I was furious and questioned him. What the hell is he doing talking to them about this for so long? These dates were months ago, by the way. John finally gave up and acknowledged that they were the ones that first proposed the concept of an open relationship, but they also discussed everything else since they're role models or Sue. John acknowledged that he needed a safe space to talk about this because he had begun to change his mind some time ago. I suppose I'm not safe as his future wife? Make it make sense, please. So why even get married to me? He assured me that he would schedule an urgent session with his therapist and that we would visit a couples counselor to resolve all of this, including his marital problems, the open relationship issue, and everything else. That all he wants is to be with me because he loves me. We went to bed because it was late. As messy as this all seems, it gave me a little more peace of mind to know that, despite the fact that my post may not show it, I truly do love him. I was prepared to go above and beyond to make things work, even though many people advised me to simply go. I want that to be the final option. Guess who's the fool, though? I woke up this morning to find my flat vacant and a message on my phone from John stating that he needs some time to process things and wants space. He did not specify his destination or his expected return time. I messaged and contacted every person I knew, but nobody was able to provide me with John's location. I informed him that this would end if he didn't return home within the next 24 hours. I am a complete mess, as you might guess. In between sobbing fits and looking at the wall, I frantically checked my messages, hoping someone would tell me where John was. I took the remainder of the week off. I'm not sure I want to be with him if he's ready to put me through this, to be honest. How can you treat a loved one in this way? The next tale. Named my kid Annabelle in honor of my husband's upbringing by his grandma. I later discovered that my dad's affair partner also had that name. I-26F recently gave birth to Annabelle, my daughter. I didn't make the announcement in advance since there was a lot of trouble when one of my family members stole a baby name in the past. I was determined to keep it a secret, but my mother wanted to know. My parents were present when I gave birth, and when it came time for me to sign the birth certificate, I informed my mother my name was Annabelle. My dad didn't appear really pleased, but he claimed to adore the name, and her face turned pale. After a few minutes, my mother departed, saying she wasn't feeling well. She promised to help with the baby by coming over in a few days. My mom hasn't spoken to me much since I moved in with the baby. I was puzzled by this abrupt action because we used to speak every day. I summoned my sister Emily over for a chat because she still lives with my mother. She revealed how she heard her mother and father fighting when she arrived at my house because her father had an affair with a coworker called Annabelle around 10 years prior. He's been trying to get mom to talk to him because she hasn't been. I suppose dad decided to come over himself after noticing Emily had arrived. He inquired as to whether there was any possibility for me to alter Annabelle's name. In an attempt to get the facts, I asked him why. He acknowledged the affair, and he did. He pleaded with his mother to stay with him, and she did, but the mere mention of that word had always made her feel unhappy. I informed him that I couldn't and that my husband's Grandma, Annabelle, had assisted in his upbringing. My father urged me to make the adjustment, stating that her mother was now collecting her belongings and making her way to her sister's home. I told him how much her name means to my spouse and myself and that I wouldn't alter it. My sister snapped back at him as soon as he started to raise his voice, telling him to get the hell out. He made a mess, but she advised him not to worry about it. He departed right away. I feel like this is destroying the family, but I'm not going to change the name of my child. What ought I to do? Small edit. Her name isn't Annabelle. Since her true name only consists of 3 letters, it would be impossible to create a nickname based on it. Many of you recommended changing her first name to her middle name, but I don't want to do that because her second name is my mom's name. For further information, oop on renaming her child for her parents' sake. It shouldn't be an issue, but it is. My spouse was raised by his grandmother because his mother gave birth to him when he was quite young. This is our way of paying tribute to her, who died away not long ago. We've been naming her Annabelle for the last 6 months since this is the baby we've been trying for. Since this is also my husband's child, his sentiments are more important in this situation than my mother's. As painful as this is for my mother, my husband and I discussed it. His grandmother was superwoman. My dad injured my mom, therefore I can't hurt my spouse. Didn't Dupe know about the affair? My dad, not me, needs to make things right. I didn't find out until 4 days later that she might have given her daughter another name, Oop. The paperwork has already been completed, and while changing the name would now incur costs, Oop should do so to prevent stress for all parties concerned. Why does a bad scenario take precedence over a favorable one? This may sound self-serving. I understand my mother's pain. However, what about the grandmother of my husband, who gave up years, money, and time for a child who wasn't hers? In this case, I believe the positives outweigh the negatives. It is also my husband's child. In this case, his grandmother is equally as significant as my mother. Has Oop discussed the related name with her mother? Not about this, Oop. I only learned about this morning. However, it's just been brief 3-minute chats for the previous few days. Even though I knew she was bothered by something, I didn't know what it was until today. September 27th, 2024. My sister then went to my aunt's house to discuss the situation with my mother. After that, my mother stopped by my place to chat. She sobbed as she expressed her regret for being aloof and acknowledged that it was improper for her to keep us in the dark about what was going on. She said that the name first startled her, but she realized how much Annabelle meant to my husband and promised never to undermine the efforts she made to raise him. I inquired as to why she kept the affair from us. She stated this because she was aware that she was psychologically unable of leaving and didn't want to give the impression that it was okay to remain with a man who had cheated on her. She responded she didn't know when I inquired whether she intended to leave her father. She said that she never moved on from the affair and that she feels guilty for spoiling her granddaughter's birth. When I asked her if she had a nickname she wanted to use, she said that she didn't and that she wanted to pay tribute to Annabelle's great-grandmother. We exchanged hugs and spoke. Thus, I believe that everything is well. Why is Oop unable to disagree with her husband's choice of name for their daughter? She is entitled to choose the Oop name. If my spouse wants to respect his grandma, how can I be selfish? In a way, my husband's grandma is his mother. It's not what he said. He was stating that it was probably for the best even though he didn't want to change it. My spouse has no influence on my thoughts or how I respond to her. Yes, there is still a problem. Though she hasn't felt them yet, she is saying things. And if she ends up being divorced, it will be a huge blow. When your sister starts pressuring her to get a divorce, since she will undoubtedly blame your child for her life's collapse. I understand that this is a possibility, but I'm rather certain that nobody will hold my child accountable. My dad will bear full responsibility. My aunt even assured her that my dad is the only one at fault, and that the baby is innocent. My aunt is someone my mom looks up to, and she often takes her advice. It's probably going to happen since I'm very certain my aunt was pressuring her to file for divorce. Oop, how will she explain her name to her kid when she gets older? The tale of the woman who took care of her father when his mother was doing drugs will be told to them. Oop. She will tell them how she prevented her grandson from taking his own life. They will learn how mom saved money for his education fund by working 2 jobs. She will be told the tale of her great-grandmother's numerous sacrifices in order to attend every baseball and football game. That, in my opinion, is more important than my dad's affair partner Oop having an affair with her father Oop. The problem is, I've never witnessed my father behave in such a manner. Therefore, until Annabelle is older and I'm leaving the birth, I'm going to stop communicating. I'll check in with him after that, and if he continues to blame me, I'll permanently update 2 to NC. 29th September 2024. As a result, I will be separating from both my parents. I felt it was fantastic that my mom was going to seek treatment for herself and couples counseling. I suppose my dad has read that if he wants to move on, it's essential to be really honest about the issue. My father teaches science at a high school. Thus, Annabelle was a student rather than a co-worker. She was in his AP class as a senior, and he had taught her as a freshman. They added each other on Facebook when she graduated at the age of 17, and I suppose that's where it all started. If my mother knew Annabelle was a student and not a co-worker, I questioned her. She sobbed and acknowledged that she did. I questioned her about how she could be with such a person. She didn't respond to me. He disgusted my sister, who called him a child lover and cursed him out. She vowed never to speak to him again. I concurred with her and informed my mother that if she believed my dad's actions were acceptable, I could not let my children near her. According to my father, Annabelle was an adult and their relationship was a mistake. He went on to say that if being upfront about the problem was just going to make things worse, it was a mistake. Since there is lots of space in the house, I don't mind that my sister moved in with me. I can't talk to either of my parents at the moment, even though they have been blowing up our phones.